Hello and welcome to the much more interesting top 10 list. That's right, these are the Gemmies. My top 10 hidden gems of 2020. You better have something to write with because I know you haven't played these games. First up on my list of top 10 hidden gems of 2020 is Murder by Numbers. And I want to talk about this list, this video you're watching a little bit before I talk about Murder by Numbers. I've done this video a couple of years ago. I think I called them underappreciated gems or underappreciated games of whatever. I want to be clear that you've already seen my top 10 list, and a couple of those actually are hidden gems. This is sort of the list I would do after my top 10 of games that I didn't include on my top 10, but are games I really enjoyed and that I feel like are underappreciated or unnoticed that are worth playing. So, let's start with Murder by Numbers. Have you ever played Phoenix Wright? This game is a lot like Phoenix Wright. In fact, they even have the same composer from the Phoenix Wright series. So if you like that sort of visual novel with that sort of music and sound effects, this is super Phoenix Wright. The twist is, instead of gathering evidence to go into court to do little logic puzzles where you're trying to catch someone in a lie, the gameplay of this game, between talking to people and stuff and presenting evidence, which you do, is you do Picross. Yeah, this is a Picross cross Phoenix Wright game, and it's pretty much just that. So if you enjoy Phoenix Wright, if you enjoy Picross, this is a well-written, funny game, just like Phoenix Wright, and you get to play Picross, and it can get really challenging, and they have timed puzzles, and it's good. I like both those things, and I ended up liking this game, and that's why it's on this list. Next up on my list is Supraland Crash. Now this one is a pretty deep hidden gem. This is a deep Gemmy, guys. How do I explain this? So in 2019, Supraland came out, and it was one of the very best underappreciated hidden gems of that year. It made my top 10. I think it was in my top 3 because it's that good. This game, Supraland Crash, was released as DLC for Supraland, but it's actually its own standalone campaign. This is a full 8 to 10 hour full Supraland game with its own new world, and it sort of takes a lot of the ideas and mechanics from Supraland and mixes them up. This is gonna feel like a fairly different game, even if you've played that original, and it's got its own new puzzles and styles and hooks. You're kind of looping through I actually don't want to spoil the twist of this game because it's funny once the first time it happens, and then once you realize it's going to keep happening. It's just a really cool, if you've never played the first Supraland, you got to do that. But it's basically, and I don't like doing this, but it's hard to describe because you don't see a lot of games like this. It's like Portal meets Metroid Prime in that it is a big open 3D Metroidvania with lots of well-crafted puzzles, and you got to use those tools to solve puzzles, but also use those tools for exploration to uncover new areas and new puzzles. And it's just, I think one dude makes this thing, and he made a full other extra game after the release of another one, and he's already working on Supraland 2, and I think there's another big full Supraland DLC just like Crash coming out. But this is a game. This is a full game, and I highly recommend it, especially if you played the first one. If you've never played the first one, play Supraland, play Supraland Crash. They're just really good, challenging puzzle exploration games, and they're awesome. Next up on my list is a puzzle platformer called Creeks. This is developed by Amanita Design. You might know them as the developers of Machinarium or Samorost and some other very artful point-and-click adventure games, this is not a point-and-click adventure. This is a straight-up puzzle platformer, moving blocks, flipping switches, trying to solve some really tricky puzzles. But it has that very eye-catching art style that you see in a lot of their games, and I think it's what initially drove me to this. You know, outside of the fact that it is sort of supposed to be a creepy puzzle platformer, and I don't mean you're ever going to be scared, but the whole premise is really cool, where it's the idea that, you know, when you see something in the shadows, like what looks like a normal object sort of comes to life because of your imagination, right? But when you turn the light on, it's just, oh, it's a coat rack or whatever, right? Well, that's sort of the mechanics of this game, where you're using light to turn monsters into ordinary objects. There's a term for that. I don't know what it is, but anyways, it's a pretty straightforward puzzle platformer. It can get really, really tricky, but I think the reason this one sort of stood out for me is just because of the visuals, because of the atmosphere, because of the music. This is actually, I think, my favorite soundtrack of this year, not just because it's got really beautiful music, but the way it's implemented in the game, where as you're starting to solve a puzzle, the music sort of starts to pick up and build, and it's just a really great presentation. And you know, I love solving puzzles, and I like, you know, a creepy atmosphere, and I feel like this game, you know, it tells a cool story without dialogue, and it's definitely like more than the sum of its parts. And if you want to play a pretty chill game with great music and cool presentation, you should definitely try Creaks. I mean, this is a hard game to dislike, that's for sure. Unless you're bad at puzzles, in which case you might struggle, but hey, it's good. And if that last game was a more traditional, straightforward puzzle game, oh man, my number 7, which is, let me check my notes. There Is No Game, Wrong Number, which is, I don't know, a strange name, but this is a fairly strange game. This is hard to describe. In fact, describing it even a little bit is probably a spoiler, but, you know, let's be honest here. I'm trying to get y'all to try some new games, so let me see what I can do. Have you ever played Pony Island, which is sort of a weird game where, you know, there's more lurking beneath than maybe you initially realize? This is one of those games. I guess I would describe it as sort of an adventure game, a puzzle adventure game, but it's all about thinking outside the box. Trying to figure out how to play it is kind of the trick, and it's a very funny, strange, quirky game that is probably going to be unlike anything, honestly, you've ever played. There's some of my most memorable video game moments of the year probably come from this game. You could probably only enjoy it one time, honestly, but that first time will be pretty crazy for sure. I would say, like, the only reason this might not be higher, this probably would have been higher on my list, maybe even made my top 10, but I do think that it is, like, overly written, and that the narrator, who's a major character in the game, I think he helps you too much. This game is all about clever puzzles, and he's always dropping hints, and you can't just turn it off because that narrator is such an important character to the story. And I realize that doesn't make sense, but man, just try this game. It is fucking wild. I just wish that I wasn't getting so much fucking help from the game, but it's so bizarre that maybe if I wasn't getting hints, I wouldn't be able to figure this thing out. No one would. Who knows? But man, this is a weird game, and even looking at what you're looking at is a spoiler. So stop looking at spoilers and try this, damn it. Next up on my hidden gems list is Dreams, sorta. Not just Dreams, actually. I do think that Dreams maybe would qualify on a hidden gems list, just because even though it was a long-awaited, you know, follow-up to Little Big Planet, which was pretty big, this, I don't think a lot of people played it. I think this game really struggled, and I think more of you do need to try it because there's some really wild stuff out there made by users. It's basically Little Big Planet 3D with a new art style, and I think it lives up to that Little Big Planet name. But the actual game that's on my list is Art's Dream. Art's Dream is the single player campaign, the story, I guess, if you will, that Media Molecule made with the Dreams toolset. And, I know some people that talked about Dreams and played Dreams, but I didn't see too many people talking about this specifically, which I thought was a really cool, beautiful, top to bottom, beautiful story and visually stunning game. About some dude kind of down on his luck and I don't want to spoil the story. I think if you have Dreams, you should definitely play it. It's not long, but it's sort of this blend between point and click adventure and action platformer, and there's some puzzle platforming. It's sort of like 3 games in one, and they use it to tell this story, and it's all really well done. No longer do Media Molecule games feel like floaty crap. They actually made some stuff that felt really good here, and there's surprises, there's laughs, there's sadness. It's just a really cool emotional story that it has amazing music and amazing visuals, and this is probably one of the coolest things that Media Molecule has created, and they did it all within in this crazy tool set. More people need to try Art's Dream. It's just really good. Next up on my list is If Found. This is a visual novel of sorts, I guess. I think about it, I've played a handful of visual novels this year in one way, form or another, and that's actually kind of surprising. This one is... How do I say this? You interact with the game by kind of wiping away or erasing journal entries, but also there's scenes where you kind of uncover the next part of the scene by wiping away and swiping. It's a really cool it's a really cool way to interact with the story and the game, and I guess you just kind of have to try. I mean, you're seeing a little bit of it here, but it's a little bit awkward because I had to do it with a controller. Normally I'm using my hand on a touchscreen because I played this on a Switch, but it's just a really beautiful game with the simple story. I mean, a simple but emotional story about identity and growing up and the bonds you form and the bonds you break. It's just, and how messy all that can be. But I found it kind of deeply resonating. It's a very human and relatable story, and it stuck with me for more than I expected after I finished it. There's not much to say. This is not a long game, but it's got a beautiful story and a wonderful look, and just the way you interact with the game is really cool. I recommend this to anyone. It's just a really cool game. The next Jimmy on my list is Sackboy. Sackboy. This shouldn't be on a Hidden Gems list. It was a PlayStation 5 launch title. But I guess if you consider the fact that no one could get a hold of a PS5, and I guess those who did only really played Demon's Souls or whatever. Not many people played Sackboy. Not many people were talking about Sackboy. It was hard to even find reviews of Sackboy when that game launched. But goddammit, I tried it. I played through it with my wife, and this is a really well-made, fun platformer. I found this surprising, right? Because, when you think of Little Big Planet, which this is not Little Big Planet, this is Sackboy, a 3D platformer. You think of floaty, poor controls. No one actually liked playing Little Big Planet as a platformer. But this one is sort of in the mold of Super Mario 3D World or 3D Land. And, it doesn't feel as good as those games. The level designs, maybe not quite as good. It's not as challenging, but let me tell you, it ain't bad. And I played through this with Malia, and we were constantly surprised by the cool new level ideas, and most importantly, man, this has the look and the presentation and the music, the visual, flair and personality of a Little Big Planet game. We had so much fun, unlocking new outfits and like dressing our sack boys up in ridiculous ways, and smacking each other around and making faces. It has that fun that you get in a Little Big Planet game, but at the same time, it's a pretty well competent 3D platformer. I don't know how challenging it would be if you played it by yourself, but as a co-op game, playing with someone who maybe isn't, quite as good of a gamer as you or I or whatever, this was a surprisingly fun experience. And if you can find this thing on sale, man, I'd say it's worth it. It was a good time, and I definitely recommend it. Next up on my list of hidden gems of 2020 is Hunt Down, which is, an unfortunately named game. I feel like the title of this game is maybe why people didn't try this, or hell, I don't know. There's a game called Hunt Showdown, so naming your game Hunt Down is probably a bad idea, but let me tell you, this is an exceptionally well-made side-scrolling action game, and if this came out in like Summer of Arcade like half a decade ago, everyone would have been talking about it because it plays well, it looks great, the music is awesome, the level design is cool, like the weapons are like feel great, there's like really smart boss designs. It's just a well-made, well-paced one of these. Everything that this game does, it knows what it does. It's a straightforward action game, and it doesn't stray from that design like all that much, right? But everything it does is A tier. Like this is, if you like this type of game, you're gonna love this one. You get really satisfying feedback from like blowing things up, and the bosses, they're so fun because they're not like, there's like a gimmick for each one, and they feel like levels in and of themselves. And I feel like I have a hard time selling this game to people because they see it and they're like, yeah, it's an indie game, I've seen a million of those. But I'm telling you, there's like voice acting in this game, and there's like one-liners, and everything is really good here. There's not like, what you see is what you get. If this game looks fun, I'm telling you, you'll like this game. It's just, there's not much to say. It's just really well made and really good, and I can't believe more people didn't try it, because anyone who tries it is probably going to like this thing. It's just rad. It's rad. Hunt Down is rad. You probably already forgot the name. It's Hunt Down. Let me remind you. Hunt Down. Buy it. My number 2 hidden gem of 2020 is Immortals Phoenix Rising. Wow, that's a bad title. Phoenix, F-E-N-Y-X, I think, is how you spell it. I feel like maybe people know about this game, but I feel like very few people actually played it, which is why it's on this list of hidden gems. Why didn't people play it? I don't know, because it came out at the end of the year. It came out roughly the same time as Cyberpunk. Everybody bought that, or maybe people played Assassin's Creed and they realized they're sick of Ubisoft games. And this is an Ubisoft game made by an Assassin's Creed team, but man, this ain't Assassin's Creed. This is Breath of the Wild by way of Ubisoft, and let me tell you, Breath of the Wild's good, and a lot of the things that this game is doing come straight from Breath of the Wild. So if you like climbing high, cool, vertical, like topography and gliding to interesting things you see off in the distance and solving cool puzzles there and getting, things that upgrade your stamina and stuff, like this is that. It's not as good as Breath of the Wild, but Breath of the Wild's one of the best games ever. This is, kind of comes close to that greatness, and I think it makes it really, really good because, the world is awesome to explore and look at, and you know what? There's puzzles everywhere, and you know what? More games need puzzles everywhere because puzzles are awesome. Not the most brilliant puzzle design you've ever seen, and there's a lot of them, but I guarantee you some of them are going to surprise you. It's just, it's a cool, cartoony, colorful game, Maybe the writing for Zeus kind of stinks, but I found the story kind of growing on me, because it's very Saturday morning cartoon, but it's, I don't know, kind of nice. I don't know. I like games where you climb things and explore and solve puzzles, and the combat's actually pretty fun. I'm gonna be real with you. The only reason this game didn't make my top 10 list, because when I first started really getting into it, I was like, this is definitely a top 10 game, was because I kind of got sick of it the more I played of it. It is an Ubisoft game, and there's too much of it. But it's also a really chill game. So if you pace yourselves and just play a little bit here and there, like, you're going to have a good time. Because, you know, Breath of the Wild was amazing. So play this if you like Breath of the Wild, or, I don't know, you like what you see. It's cool. Immortals, Phoenix Rising. My favorite hidden gem of 2020 is Bloodstained Curse of the Moon 2. And I'm a little sad that it's going on a hidden gems list because, you know, I don't think enough people tried this. I think people played Bloodstained Ritual of the Night. I think even people played that first Curse of the Moon game because, I don't know, they were hyped about Bloodstained and it was a cool way to, you know, start the series. But let me tell you, Curse of the Moon 2 cements Bloodstained as just a quality series all around. This is sort of an even better refined version of Curse of the Moon 1, which is more or less a throwback classic Castlevania game. But this one's even better because they put a lot of creative like design work into the different characters you can play as and switch between. And I think the first game was more straightforward analogs to like Castlevania 3 characters, but this one, I mean, there's like a sniper dude. There is a corgi that rides in a mech, and that and it's sort of like weird kooky takes on a classic Castlevania style platformer, but the way you mix those abilities together, because that one character has like a really high jump, and then you could switch to the sniper in the air who can jump off walls, and as you get up into the air you can switch to the corgi mech, which by the way can float in the air, and turns into a cute little train too when you're crouching, and you combine all these things and you're doing cool, like getting to like secrets and levels. Like the level design in this game is even better than that last Curse of the Moon game. It's like very intricately designed with a lot of alternative pathways where you kind of got to use your different characters, or even more characters you unlock in subsequent playthroughs to get to different parts of the levels. And my god, this game is challenging. I think it's a much better balanced game than that first game, but man, it is fucking hard, but not like Castlevania, classic Castlevania hard, just close to that. It's like a modern version of that, but it's friendlier, even though it's still really hard. I can't say enough good things about this game. I'm not even that big of a classic Castlevania fan. I became a Castlevania fan after Symphony of the Night, and I've gone back to play some of those games, but I don't have a lot of like fondness for them. But these modern Curse of the Moon games are kind of giving me that love that I always wish I had for some of those older games, just because they're so well made, they're well balanced, they have fun characters and good level design and like tricky bosses. It's old school fun without all the old school pain. But let me be clear, it is still very hard, but doable in a good way. So yeah, Bloodstained, man, what a good trilogy of games this has been so far. Let's keep them coming. I want more. It's great. And that's going to do it. That's my top 10 hidden gems of 2020. Well, hidden gems that aren't on my top 10. Because let me be honest with you, Horizon's Gate is probably the deepest Gemmy of all. But, yeah. You now have a list of 10 more games to play. Because I'm sure none of you have played any of these goddamn games. But they're all cool. They're all cool. I could have kept going. I could have gave you, 20 hidden gems of 2020. But alas, these were my 10 fave. Anyways, have a good day.